we are going to be buying, selling, holding, or possibly avoiding. It's kind of pick your poison day. We brought our own guys to the table, but that's okay because we get to tell you who and what we're doing, and most importantly, why. So, Zach, let's kick it off with you. Who is your first candidate?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Brian Robinson here for a second, Commanders running back. And I want to preface this by saying I was probably wrong about Brian Robinson coming out of college. I was just like, I don't want this guy. I don't want to touch this guy. And then he was a pretty good running back in his rookie season, even after being shot. He got the job. He won the job in training camp. Would have started the season if it had not been for that tragic accident. Yeah. And he came back in the regular season, and he was okay. He was all right. Then we go to next year, or last year. In 12 games in which he played at least 40% of the snaps, Brian Robinson averaged 15.5 touches, 77.9 total yards per game, quietly displayed a 3-down skill set, one that I remember even you saying you didn't think he had because he was never a pass catcher. And that's like, you weren't wrong. You were 100% right. He was never a prolific pass catcher at Alabama or even in his rookie season. But he really did show that he could be a 3-down running back last year, play on passing downs. And also he ranked 5th in yards per route run last season, and then 12th in PFF's pass blocking grade. So, like, was there any reason to take him off the field last year? No, not really. I am not personally too worried about a declining 29-year-old Austin Eckler taking more than, I don't know, a third of the workload away at the running back position, which I'm never mad at that. Like, we are in an era now where you are more than likely not going to have a workhorse running back, a bell cow running back. There's a few of those. There's 4 or 5 of those right now, and everybody else is sharing the ball with another running back. And I'm not worried about Austin Eckler doing that, who was terrible last season. He was very inefficient in almost every single metric and was just a product of an offense that was not functional at certain points in the season, that being the Chargers, and Justin Herbert just having to dump it off to him at certain points in the season. So I'm just not too worried about that. On Keep Trade Cut, he's ranked RB26. I don't see any reason he can't finish better than that. I would put him at safely an RB2, a safe floor of an RB2. I saw a couple of trades. These are all players that were traded straight up for Brian Robinson on Dynasty Daddy. Jameson Williams, Adonai Mitchell, Marquise Brown, all straight up. I would much rather have Brian Robinson than any of those 3 players. I realize the ceiling on Jameson Williams is probably higher, but the floor is a lot lower. And then the ceiling on Marquise Brown is a lot higher. But, you know, we haven't really seen that for 2 years out of Marquise Brown at this point. And I'm not the Adonai Mitchell guy. I'm not a hater. I'm just not the Adonai Mitchell guy. I'd rather have Brian Robinson, who I believe, when I'm trying to get running backs, and you did a whole show on anti-running backs the last time we were together, I'm just looking for a safe floor. Give me 10 points. Give me 10 points a week, and I am so happy because I'm relying on my wide receivers and tight ends. So Brian Robinson, at the cost to go and acquire him, I'm just trying to buy him everywhere I can to scoop him up because I think people are just sleeping on him.
Agreed 100%. If I have another back in the Commanders' backfield, give me Chris Rodriguez for practically free. And
like
look,
that.
Signing Austin Eckler, you know what that is? If you're the Commanders, that's a good football move. You bring a veteran guy in who might be able to contribute a little bit. I don't really think it hurts. I think it hurts Brian Robinson's fantasy value less than when Antonio Gibson was there last year. I love these values. I love where he's at. Brian Robinson, you know, his stats were down last year, missed 2 games with a hamstring strain. These things happen. Running backs get banged up, but I love this. Buy Brian Robinson. We've been saying buy Brian Robinson like every year during the offseason the last 2 years. So let's keep it up. Zach, I'm going to go ahead and buy Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Now, that being said, I am not buying him to be my wide receiver 1 or 2, hopefully, depending on my team makeup. Hopefully, he's a guy that's like, this is my solid wide receiver 3 that's going to have wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 1 upside weeks because you know he can still do it. But I want to keep him as my wide receiver 3 / flex play. Said he's back up to full health. Missed a lot of time with the hamstring strain last year. And hey, look, despite missing that time and having hammy issues, which hard to overcome if you're a wide receiver and you run a lot, he averaged 13.7 fantasy points per game, only wide receiver 40 on the year, but he played only 12 games. He's missed about 5 games there. We've seen what he's done in the past. You know what he could do. And wide receivers, they typically have a longer shelf life than running backs. And just so you know, last year, 59 catches, 737 yards, 5 touchdowns. And I think him, Puka Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson can all coexist in beautiful 3 wide sets out there with Matthew Stafford at the helm. So right now, on Keep Trade Cut, he's valued around guys such as Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, George Kittle. I mean, you look at these guys, George Kittle, you're crossing positions there, sometimes hard to value. But Kittle could be like the fourth, third receiving option, depending on the game for the 49ers. Terry McLaurin, you're relying on a rookie quarterback, and Jaden Daniels and Christian Watson, you have to rely on his hamstrings. It's kind of scary, Zach. But you could trade him straight up. I saw a couple of trades, and I use Fantasy Calc. I do like Dynasty Daddy. I use them both straight up for Derrick Henry. I saw a straight up trade for Mike Evans. I don't know about that one. I'd have a hard time moving Mike Evans for Cooper Kupp just because Mike Evans is so good. Mike Evans has that safer floor, I think we could say. Zach's talking about that. Cooper Kupp may have the higher ceiling.
Yeah, those are a lot of those are interesting. I agree with you with the Mike Evans one. And Cooper Kupp, this is a good name. This is a good name to put on this list because obviously, as of recording this, Puka Nacua dealing with an injury. We don't know if that's going to linger into the season. I know Sean McVay literally just talked about it 5 minutes ago as of recording this. I don't know what he said, but he did talk about the Puka Nacua injury and what exactly is something with the bursa sac, which has to do with the joint of the knee, which is not great. But I'm still not panicking. But here's the thing. Despite all the Puka Nacua stuff last year, he played in 12 games, and he had 4 games with 10-plus targets, and 4 games with 20-plus fantasy points, and he was still the 9th most red zone targeted wide receiver in the NFL, despite playing 12 out of 17 games. That's incredible. He's kind of like Matthew Stafford's best friend when they get inside the red zone. So I think this is a great name for this list. I think this is what this list is for, like players that you're buying kind of under the radar and that can outperform their cost at this point. I think I agree with you with the Mike Evans trade. Not sure if I'd pull that one off just because just very safe floor to me with Mike Evans. Good Lord, do I like him way more than any of those first names you listed off, Christian Watson, Terry McLaurin, and or George Kittle. I'll take, and Derrick Henry too. I'll take Cooper Kupp over any of those guys.
Zach, be prepared to defend yourself in the comments. What you got for me, man?
Yeah, I'm going to avoid Buffalo Bills tight end Dalton Kincaid. All right. Let me first preface this by saying I'm a huge fan. Same. Love me some Dalton Kincaid. Got a lot of shares. But if I have Dalton Kincaid, I am not preparing for him to finish as the tight end 4, which is what he's valued at right now. And if that's what it takes for me to go out and buy him, or if I have to draft him at the tight end 4, I'm not doing that. I absolutely will not. And here's why. And this is going to take a minute. So buckle your seatbelts, pal. With Dawson Knox there last year, Dalton Kincaid averaged, without Dawson Knox, averaged 7.4 targets a game, 6.2 catches per game, 56 yards a game, and only scored 2 touchdowns in 5 games. That's without Dawson Knox. With Dawson Knox in 14 games, Kincaid averaged 4.7 targets, only 3.6 catches a game, only 35 yards, and scored 1 touchdown in 14 games, Mike, with Dawson Knox there. So you're probably sitting there saying, well, they had a coordinator change. Joe Brady's now the offensive coordinator. Well, there's virtually no difference between the two last year. Kincaid's targets per game essentially stayed the same under both OCs, 5.6 under Ken Dorsey to 5.8 under Joe Brady. His target share, 16.9% under Dorsey, 18% under Joe Brady, so only a 1% increase. He saw a 14.5% red zone target share last year. It was 3rd on the Buffalo Bills and just barely ahead of Dawson Knox. So, look, the reasons why Dalton Kincaid can and probably will outperform the numbers that he put up last year, well, the Bills moved off of 241 targets in Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. But they did add Curtis Samuel. They did add Keon Coleman. And they did add, look, this is going to be an under-the-radar name, in my opinion, Ray Davis, one of the better pass-catching running backs in all of college football last year and led all NCAA running backs, all of them, not the ones being drafted, all of them in receiving touchdowns last year in college football. I think he's going to have something to say about, some of the pass catching work out of the backfield. At tight end 4, Mike, I'd rather have some of the guys behind him for the upcoming season's production. This has nothing to do with 2025, 2026. I don't know. But Dawson Knox is there, and Dawson Knox is not going anywhere because his contract says so. They signed him to an extension 2 years ago that only started last year. They love to run 12 personnel with 2 tight ends out there. This is, to me, maybe you see the numbers increase a little bit, but not to tight end 4 level production. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Dawson Knox's contract dictates that he's going to be there, and they are going to use him, and he will have an impact on Dalton Kincaid's numbers overall. So I'd rather have tight ends ranked behind Dalton Kincaid, such as Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson, and I'd even put David Njoku there. Look, I'm not saying I don't like Dalton Kincaid. I do. But on all my fantasy rosters that I have him, I have somebody else that I feel safer starting every week. Because I'm sure that he will have a week where he has 15, 20 points, but I'm pretty sure that there will be weeks where he has 5, 6, or 7 fantasy points, and I don't feel good about that in my starting lineup, Mike.
Yeah, and you know what? People are like, oh, they could just cut Dawson Knox. If they cut Dawson Knox, we're post June 1st. That's an $11.9 million dead cap hit, and next year it's $9.5 million. I got bad news for everybody. Dawson Knox is going to be around for a while, and Dawson Knox is pretty good tight end too. So you're just going to have to temper your expectations. I get it. As far as you saying you'd rather target Evan Ingram, I understand that one as well. Jake Ferguson, I think I've been the biggest Jake Ferguson fan on this podcast. The only one I have a hard time getting is David Njoku, who's just been kind of hit or miss for me personally throughout his career. Let's talk about my next candidate, and I'm going to be selling Minnesota Vikings tight end TJ Hockenson. I'm going to tell you why. I like TJ Hockenson. On pace to be the tight end 1 last year before that late season injury, but he's unlikely to play for at least a month. Sam Darnold has been named the starter. Yuck. Yuck. Okay. And here's the thing. The tight end position, she's a fickle one. So you need as many points as you can. And going to your backup tight end for the first month of the season is not the way I want to come out of the gate swinging. So do I hate selling TJ Hockenson? Yes. If I have another guy waiting in the wings where I can kind of absorb that blow of him not playing for a month, like a Jake Ferguson, I would do that. You know what I mean? That it's like, all right, I got Jake Ferguson. I'm a fan of his. That's okay. We're just going to suck it up. But if I don't, if TJ Hockenson was my guy and I was just playing waiver wire last year at the end of the season, got to make some moves. Okay. He was tight end 4 in 2023. Give him the credit where it's due. 95 catches, 960 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to get that this year with the combination of Sam Darnold until week 5, 6, and then JJ McCarthy from there on out. Who knows when he's actually going to take over? But I want those points. I want them now. I like to come out the gate hot, Zach. I want to be playing catch up in week 11. So he's valued around players right now, such as Jordan Addison, Rashad White, and Rashee Rice. His value's still up there. I would try like a late first to get for him if I could. Could I do TJ Hockenson for Trey McBride in a third? Trey McBride, I like what the Cardinals are putting together down there in Arizona. Kyler Murray, I like Kyler Murray a little bit. Got Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Trey McBride down there. Michael Wilson still down there kicking around. What do you think about that one, Zach?
I don't think you can get that one done. I
You
think
don't think so?
you'd have to have the Hawk and a pick for McBride.
Okay. What about TJ Hockenson for Jake Ferguson in a second? If you don't have Jake Ferguson, Jake Ferguson's value is not as high as that of TJ Hockenson or Trey McBride.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you with this. The community's too low on Jake Ferguson, in my opinion. I think that's a deal that you could pull off. Getting a tight end that you can start and feel comfortable with this year and a second-round pick. I like that one. Yeah.
Jake Ferguson had a good season last year. Tight end 9. Yeah.
I think he led all tight ends in red zone targets as well.
He did also have 5 touchdowns, 102 targets. So 71 catches, 761 yards, 5 touchdowns.
I have a question for you. This may be off subject. It is about Jake Ferguson, but I was having this conversation in one of my leagues, and I was making the argument that there is, at least in my mind, the opportunity that Jake Ferguson could finish tight end 1 overall. I'm not predicting it. I'm not predicting it by any means. But when I look at what does it take for a tight end to be tight end 1 overall? Opportunity, targets, high-powered offense, good quarterback. How does Jake Ferguson not check all those boxes when he's arguably the second target in that offense?
Yeah. And also, you were right. By the way, he did lead tight ends in red zone targets with 25. So, yeah, pretty important there. This is a really good question. I mean, he's got some competition. You got Sam Laporta, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce. Hockenson could make a push, a good late season push. I think Hockenson's a top 10 tight end this year, not tight end 4. You got Trey McBride, Cole Kmet still kicking around. Let's not forget Dalton Schultz, also tight end 10. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible.
That's all that I'm asking. That's all that I'm asking, though.
I want to throw in
Is
the
it
caveat.
possible?
It feels unlikely, but it's possible.
Sure. But that was the discussion because some league mates were like, oh, no, it's like this is a second-year tight end. He's going into his third. You're telling me he's not going to get better? That offense, that offense in the second half of the year last year started to take off when they finally figured out the Mike McCarthy offense, when they stopped trying to force feed Tony Pollard the ball, and they just said, let's throw it around a little bit. Brandon Cooks was better. Jake Ferguson was better. CeeDee Lamb was better. Dak Prescott was better. Why is it so crazy to say that it's at least a possibility in a world where CeeDee Lamb's not reported? They just put him on the DNR list, okay? Brandon Cooks is 30, 31 years old. He's the wide receiver too. Why is it not possible that Jake Ferguson, who led all tight ends in targets in the red zone last year, cannot get better? How is that possible in our minds?
Zach, let's go to who is your next candidate for buy, sell, hold, avoid?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. And I understand the narrative around Herbert. I understand that there's a new offense in town, but they go ahead and bring Greg Roman in as the offensive coordinator, bring him in for Baltimore, a very run-heavy offense. And then what do? They bring in the Baltimore running backs and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So everybody is criminally low on Justin Herbert right now. He's the quarterback 10 on Keep Trade Cut. In startup drafts, he's going in the second round at that point, right? Quarterback 10, that is ridiculous. And if I can go ahead and buy on that at any look there, I think the narrative around what's going to happen in Los Angeles is 100% true this year. They're going to be a ground and pound team. They're going to try and win games 19-10. They're going to keep the ball away from you. I don't know much about that defense, if it's any good or not, but I think that's what they're going to try and do. I don't think they're going to try and score 35, 40 points like they were last year under Brandon Staley, who was a terrible head coach. Nonetheless, Herbert's 83.1 Pro Football Focus passing grade last season was the second best of his career, so he's still getting better as a passer. It was 10th among 30 qualifiers in that in the quarterback range last year. So look, he's still a good quarterback. That's not going to change. I think they're gonna run the ball obviously a lot, and that's going to open up a buying opportunity for Justin Herbert. The problem with it is, I think that while the community recognizes this, Mike, you're still going to get people that are going to want to sell you Justin Herbert at what he was a year ago. And personally, like I'm still not doing that. I'm not the bougie spender. I'm the try to get a player at a discount kind of a guy, as obviously I'm pointing out here. So this is where I kind of lean towards you on the trade. Like, if I was going to trade for Justin Herbert, I'd obviously have to include a first-round pick and probably a tier down quarterback, or an aging vet. You could, or even a rookie. You could throw like a Brock Bowers and a first-round pick in there for Justin Herbert. But then you get that quarterback tax for one team getting a quarterback and one not. What say you? I saw this one. I liked it. Justin Herbert for Bryce Young, a first and a second round pick in 2025.
I think I'd rather keep Justin Herbert just because I know what his safer floor is. And I am buying in on Bryce Young this offseason, but I would be more interested probably in a guy like a Trevor Lawrence than a Bryce Young. Personally, you could take one of those picks off if it's like Trevor Lawrence in a first. If I could do that to get it done, people are really down on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, but see, I'm not, so I'm not buying Herbert at that price.
No, I know. I understand what you're saying. I'm just telling you what that personally wouldn't move the needle for me. Now, I do think other people that would get the deal done, and that's a good move to make. Personally, if you have Justin Herbert, but the rest of your team is bad, and you want to kind of use that to retool a little bit, I think that would be a really good move for a non-contending team to make. Would be one like that. But that one, for me personally, doesn't move it as much.
Yeah, but I think that there's going to be buying opportunities all season long for Justin Herbert just because of this narrative. I think is absolutely going to play out, but it doesn't make Justin Herbert any less of a talented quarterback. It's just This is the first year of a team taking over, wanting to establish their culture, the type of team they're going to be. I still think they'll be a run-heavy offense moving forward, but Justin Herbert can make plays with his feet. And once they get more talented pass catchers in there, other than Quentin Johnston, things will be better for Justin Herbert.
It's another team, just like they were doing with Daniel Jones out there. It's like, give the guys some weapons. They got DJ Chark, Josh Palmer, and look, you got Lab McConkey. And I know everyone's excited about Lab McConkey, but he's a rookie, right? So temper your expectations a little bit. And then after that, they got Brendan Rice. Quentin Johnston, not even listed as a starter on this depth chart here.
How dare you besmirch Hayden Hurst?
Well, I didn't get to the tight ends yet, Zach. Hayden Hurst is out there, and I like Hayden Hurst. Will Dissly, who's just kind of whatever. Their wide receiver room really doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. I guess of those guys, I'd probably rather have Josh Palmer. And I do agree with you that there's going to be a buy opportunity pretty much all season long. I'm going to buy Chicago Bears running back DeAndre Swift, coming off his best professional season and also his healthiest professional season. He only missed one game due to an illness, so good for you. A lot of people had questioned his ability to stay healthy throughout his career, so he did. Do you think it's safe to say that Roschon Johnson's not going to be a thing at this point?
I do think it's safe to say.
I mean, and I hate to say it too, because I'm a Roschon Johnson fan, but if they were in on him, they probably wouldn't have given DeAndre Swift a nice contract here. Khalil Herbert's still there too. Khalil Herbert, who's shown he can be a very viable back too. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. He is also coming off DeAndre Swift. That is a career year as a runner. So maybe that'll kickstart him for the rest of his career. 229 carries, 1,049 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I did add not too much receiving. Sirianni offense doesn't really throw to the backs that often. Maybe that changes this year with Kellen Moore in town. 39 catches, 214 yards, and 1 touchdown through the air. So he's valued around players such as Stephon Diggs, Tajay Spears, and David Montgomery. So, Zach, his value's a little bit down there right now. I saw a straight up trade Zamir White for DeAndre Swift. That one intrigues me because we're all kind of in on Zamir White, but I feel like you kind of get a known commodity with DeAndre Swift here. You know what I mean? That one intrigues me a little bit. I don't know which way I'd lean. I also saw DeAndre Swift for 26 first. I'd like that first to be a little bit sooner. Or you could do it for 225 seconds. I saw that one on trade block as well. I don't know how I feel about that. If it's a starting running back, I'd love to get it first if I'm selling. But what are you thinking about these, Zach? What are your thoughts here?
Wait, are you buying DeAndre Swift at the cost of a first-round pick in any year?
I mean, maybe he's your missing piece. And I don't mind trading 2 years out. I got time to get that back. Bob hates when I say that, but math is math, man.
Yeah, I can't do a first-round pick. And the other one I can't do Stephon Diggs either. Any of the other names, sure. Tajay Spears, David Montgomery, Zamir White. I'm not the Zamir White guy. Second-round picks, no problem. I can't do a first. I can't do Stephon Diggs. I still think Stephon Diggs is going to have a good season. Still finished as a wide receiver 1 last year, despite the finish. That tells you how good he was when Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator, and just that Joe Brady didn't like Stephon Diggs, or that's just not how he runs that offense. I'm not saying he's going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. I'm just saying I don't think the end of the road is here for Stephon Diggs. Let me ask you this, because you obviously got to watch him play a lot last year. If you're buying him, are you worried that he's not the same player that he was last year behind that offensive line? Look at Miles Sanders without him.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Or without that offensive line, I should say.
Miles Sanders also, towards the end of his run in 22, was getting taken off the field for Kenneth Gainwell a lot in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl as well. I actually wanted the Eagles to re-sign DeAndre Swift because I didn't think the whole Saquon Barkley signing was actually going to happen. And he played good last year. He was here, would have been cheaper than Saquon Barkley. I don't know why we always care about saving our team's money. It's not our freaking money. You know what I mean? But
well, it could affect you at other positions. You were probably able to do other things.
Yes, it could.
Or you might not be able to do other things because you signed Saquon Barkley.
But I do think he'll probably have more opportunity in Chicago than he would if he stayed here.
Sure. You know, like you said, you did note about Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. I don't necessarily think that either of them are fantasy relevant, but they will impact DeAndre Swift.
Right.
More so than what Kenny Gainwell or anybody else in Philadelphia was going to do to DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, you know, I think he could be kind of like a higher-ish end running back too. I think he's a guy He's still pretty young. And he's a guy that could be a really good addition to your team. That's all we got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. Zach, thank you for joining me for these last two podcasts. Natecation should be over soon. You'll see him back on this pod next week. Until next time, for Zach, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening, everybody.